Good morning. Welcome back to High Country Mobile Auto Repair. It's going to be episode 1.5 on the Chevy K20. And really what I want to do is explain a little bit better why I bought the truck and what the plans are for it. It's a bit of an introduction. I'm here in Southwest Colorado. I run High Country Mobile Auto Repair. Um, Currently, I'm running it out of this Toyota Tundra, and that truck originally was not supposed to be my work truck. That is our family truck for towing and for road trips and stuff like that and getting work done around here. So the goal is to get that out of service so that I'm not putting all the miles and wear and tear on it, running around here on these muddy roads doing mobile mechanic work. So that is why we got, oh gee, it's a little cold this morning. That was the reason for the Chevy K20 service truck. I'm going to utilize this tool bed for all my tools. It's got a lot more storage than the back of that Tundra does. It's a lot more easily accessible as well. So the last time you saw this truck, and it just started up and ran after 16 years of sitting, which was very exciting. But the reality is the motor was not very good. You can see it sitting right here. We had low compression on 1 or 2 cylinders, and there were a few cam lobes that had been wiped off. I don't know if it had very good oil pressure or not, but the reality is the cost of rebuilding the engine and the 3-month wait for machine time, it just wasn't worth it. So I want to show you. Oh, it's over here. I'm going to show you what's going into this truck. Here we've got a LS. This is an LM7 5.3 liter V8 out of a 99 Silverado. Unknown mileage, but it was pulled out of a running truck that was wrecked. Now, luckily, I did get all of the accessories. We got the PCM, the harness, intake, everything I'm going to need basically. So the truck's getting an LS swap. The main reason for wanting to do that, besides the original 350 being bad, is I'm up here at 7,300 feet in elevation, and being right in the foothills of the mountains and on the edge of the desert, we're in a spot where I can go up or down, like 3,000 feet in elevation regularly. So I wanted to get away from a carburetor and a fixed distributor ignition. So the LS kind of fixes both of those issues for me. So the going up and down in elevation, the fuel injection timing is all going to be controlled factory GM. So should be much more reliable, turnkey, more fuel efficient, overall better package. Luckily, the 5.3 is going to bolt to the original Turbo 400 transmission that was in this truck with a few changes. So we're going to retain the factory transmission. Now, the transfer case. Oof. This is the original case. This is the bottom where it hangs down. This one's been ground off on rocks and everything, and there's actually a hole here where the case was cracked. So this case is not in the best shape. So now we have a new case, newish. This one has all new seals in it. Unfortunately, the input shaft is wrong for my application. This is a 700R4 input shaft. This is the Turbo 400. So this shaft is going to have to go into this transfer case. So both are going to get disassembled on the bench here, and that'll be in a future episode. Here you can see here's the Turbo 400. It works in first gear. It worked in reverse. That was all the testing I got to do on it, but the fluid looks good, much better than the outside. So this is all going to be cleaned up. as clean as I can get it. I'm going to replace this modulator. I'm going to pull the pan, put a new gasket, new filter, possibly a shift kit, new seals. Then that'll get mated up to the 5.3 that we have, which also here soon. I'm not pulling the heads on this motor, but I'm going to be changing the front seal, the rear main seal, oil pan, and we're going to be putting a new water pump, freshening everything up. Probably a new gasket here, maybe new NOx sensors. I'd like to do the work on this engine now before it's in the truck because everything's a lot easier to get done at the moment. So, to strip the truck down quite a bit, I've got the service bed off of the back. I've got the bench seat ripped out. Some of the interior is pulled out. Obviously, the whole drivetrain is pulled out. Now, more bad news on this truck. We have cracks in the frame. So, right here on both sides, see that? So this is where the service bed mounted, and because of the way it was mounted, there was a plate here, and the plate was bolted to the bed on the front and then bolted through the frame on the back here. So I think what was happening was that plate was twisting when the frame and box flex, and it was putting enough leverage, it was trying to rip the bolts out on both sides here. So the first thing I've got to do is I'm going to gouge this out and weld it, and then once the cracks are welded up and everything's smooth and good again, I'm going to either weld that plate straight to the frame, or I'm going to come up with a new mounting system so that this doesn't happen again. But I need to get this done before we get the new fuel tanks mounted in. Also, another crack up here. You can see this motor mount plate is split. It's about a 3-inch crack there. So I need to take this off and re-weld that and get it reinforced. There's a crack here in this cross member, but I'm not worrying about that because this cross member here is going to be replaced with a aftermarket LS swap cross member to clear the oil pan on that 5.3. Then the next major issue before we get started, I got to fix all this rust here before the fuel tanks get mounted up underneath. Doing cutting and welding, all that, it's better to just leave the fuel tanks out. All of this rust, this damage, was caused by water in the truck getting trapped and couldn't get out. Bad door seals, dirt buildup. That's what caused this, because unlike most other trucks, it's actually solid underneath. Pretty solid. And then the other side, there's no rust at all. So I'm going to order a new rocker here and a new patch panel for the floor. I'm going to just try to cobble this together to where it's structurally sound, and then we're going to be doing bed liner across the entire floor here. So it doesn't have to look real pretty. This is a work truck. There's not going to be carpet. There's not, it is what it is. But I want to get these holes in this fixed up, mostly because the new door seal it rides on this lip here. Well, there's no lip down here because it rusted off. So I want to get this repaired and get that lip in there so that I can put the new door seals in. So that really is wrapping up the first steps. Is going to be fixing the cracks in the frame, fixing the rust in the floor. Once that's done, which is the part I don't want to do, I'll do it first because I've been procrastinating on it. Once that's done, I'm going to be putting new leaf springs in, new shocks in the rear, and a new rear axle here. Because Pinion bearings are bad. Pull the cover off. The spider gears are all chipped up. This axle's just been worked over. So pick this one up in Pueblo, Colorado. This one has been freshened with new seals and new brakes and everything, but it's good used condition. The problem with this one is going to be this axle is 3 inches narrower on the mounting surface than that one, because this is a 2-wheel drive axle. So I'm going to have to run wheel spacers on the rear to get the width back to where I'm at now. I don't like that, but I don't have a choice now. The other difference on this, these shock hangers sit about 2 inches lower than they do here. And that's another difference because it's a 2-wheel drive axle. So I'm going to need 2-inch longer or so shocks for the rear, which is unfortunate because I already bought new shocks. But that's where we're at. So once we're finished with the welds, the flooring, we're going to get the rear suspension done, new rear axle installed in here. Then I'm going to turn the truck around, get the front end in. Same thing. We're going to replace these leaf springs, the shocks. I'm going to remove this sway bar. And then also we have all brand new steering. So there is a ton of play everywhere. As well as what we mentioned in the first video, these U-bolts aren't tight. You can see that movement there. So everything is loose. We've got new end links here, new drag bar, tie rod, steering stabilizer. Basically everything in here is going to be brand new. New steering box, new pitman arm, because this bolt loosened up at some point in this truck's life, and now you can't see it, but that tapered bolt is wobbling around inside there, which means the tapered bore on this pitman arm is shot. So we have all new leaf springs, shocks, steering stabilizer. This is from Off-Road Design in Colorado. This is an upgraded chromoly steering linkage. New U-bolts for all the leaf springs. There's the pitman arm over there. So in addition to that, once the suspension is done, the steering is done, probably pull the axle shafts out of the front here. I'll put new U-joints in there, new fluid in the front diff, reseal it. New U-joints in all the drive shafts. Oh, new body mounts. They're all completely gone and shot. So there is going to be a lot of new stuff in this truck. The fuel system, I'm going to retain the factory dual tanks, and also I'm going to retain the factory selector valve between the tanks. So on a Chevy GM that has the dual tanks, you've got the switch here. So that way you can switch between left and right tanks, and the fuel gauge will reflect whichever tank you're on, and then it'll show you the fuel level. So what we're going to do on this is, for the LS, I'm going to run an electric fuel pump, like a Holley low pressure fuel pump on the frame rail. That is going to bring fuel up to the engine bay at 8 psi or 9, something like that. And then on the firewall somewhere, or maybe on the fender here, we're going to mount a Phytech, kind of like a wet sump fuel system. That's actually going to take that fuel from that electric pump on the frame rail, and it's going to turn that into high pressure fuel, 58 psi, directly here to the engine. So the LS is going to need for the factory tuning. And then there'll be a return line coming off of that Phytech unit that will go into the factory return lines on the fuel, or on the truck here. So basically, we're retaining most of the factory fuel lines, the tanks, the sending units, everything, and just using a FiTech unit up here to give us that regulated 58 psi for the LS. Um, we're going to be using factory factory style motor mounts for the 81 Chevy, which I already have new motor mounts here, but we're going to use adapter plates on here. These 4 bolts are the motor mount bosses. So the plate's going to move the mount up forward to about here. So that's going to put the LS in almost exactly the same position as the original 350 was. That way the transmission doesn't move, the transfer case doesn't move. Um, but the big benefit I'm excited for is I get to use the factory 1981 fan shroud and the LS mechanical fan. So I don't have to worry about electric fans and timing and relays and all that. I'm just gonna keep it factory as much as possible. But probably, oh, the biggest thing, the one thing that I never mentioned, got new wheels and tires. The first upgrade to any project, wheels and tires. I got these because I needed to be able to roll this truck around, and I couldn't do it with those wheels and tires over there. So this was the first thing. It's kind of an early upgrade. Um, but yeah, there you have it. So wrapping it up for now, we are LS swapping it, new motor, using the old transmission, new transfer case, new rear axle, new suspension, new steering, new interior, possibly new dash. There's a lot. There's not much of this truck is usable currently. But we're getting there, and stay tuned. We're going to be getting a lot of work done on this very soon.